Nigeria's energy situation, especially in light of some of the concerns about a possible situation that might put a lot of Nigerians into an even tighter corner, because there are concerns that the price of PMS, which is at the heart of the current economic quagmire that most people are dealing with, especially since the removal of fuel subsidy, might go significantly up. A lot of numbers have been making the rounds in media spaces right now, leading to a lot more concern on the part of the public about what may likely come in the weeks or months to come, in spite of all of the assurances around what the NNPC is doing, around what the Dangote refinery can represent as far as a solution is concerned. So join us on the program this morning is Sowonmi Olabode. Olabode is an energy expert and editor-at-large Energia Today and Chief Executive Officer, Cabtree Limited. Good morning to you, and thank you so much for joining us on the program. It's good to see you.
Good morning. Always a pleasure.
Right. Let's start this way. For most Nigerians, we're already paying more than we should be paying. Since the removal of fuel subsidy, I guess a lot of people are still unhappy about where we are right now with energy prices. From your understanding of, the status quo, how volatile is the situation?
Okay, so there are a number of perspectives to it. So when we say we are not paying what we should be paying, the thing I usually ask is that what should we be paying? The real issue is not so much as in the costs, what is going to. The real issue is an economic issue of dollar parity. Because oil is an international commodity, it's going to relate to us, it's going to interact to us at competitive rates to what is available internationally, irrespective of the fact that we produce it. So except we are going to make it available to ourselves for free, which is a totally different discussion. As long as we bring it out, somebody has to take the cost of that. That cost is what's going to reflect on what is the international price. That's really what is at the heart of it. So anytime that there is a call or a demand for price to increase in PMS, there are two factors to it. One is that the dollar rate is falling. The second one will be that the naira to dollar could be falling. The second one could be our own internal logistics issues. In other words, those who are responsible for bringing it to the last mile, bringing it to you and I, may for some reason demand increase in their fees. So those are the two main things that cause it. Now, obviously, whatever will have happened within the government at the onset that led to the floating of the dollar, whichever way you look at it, has proven not to be in the best interest of everyone. The intentions may have been noble. The intention may still get us to where we want to get to. But at the moment, it is responsible for the precipitated figures that we are seeing. So it is those things that are affecting it. It's not really an oil and gas issue per se. It's not even it's definitely not an engineering issue. It's fundamentally an issue of supply and demand with respect to
AKA market forces, basically.
Yes.
When we say some of these things, at some point Nigerians get lost because if you look at the last 1 month, 6 weeks thereabout, we have seen some level of stability in the exchange rate market.
That's true.
Not exactly where we want it, but the fluctuations have been minimized as much as possible. We have also here claims of ramping up crude production. Melekere will tell you we are doing crude plus condensate 2 million barrels. Whether or not that is true is a different thing. The OPEC figures show something different. But if we take the face value of what they say, it means somehow we seem to be making a bit more dollars that should help, stabilize some of the indices that cause this fluctuation other than engineering and production. Why do we still live with this fear? 1 minute, it's like we are running out of products, we are going to get back to, and then you see panic buying, as you would have noticed this morning. Filling stations that are used to opening up 24 hours suddenly would not open doors till about 10 a.m. and shut somewhere abruptly in the middle of the day. What exactly is going on?
Okay, so, I cannot speak to the internal issues of specific companies. Like you referred to the companies, the filling stations that are open for 24 hours. But we can't speak and analyze the facts of the matter and maybe make deductions into what exactly could be the issue. One of the reasons why we don't produce optimally is us. It's not market forces. When Dangote came up with the business plan for his refinery, we were producing 2.2 to 2.5 million barrels per day. Norway is an oil producing country.
The smaller one.
Sorry?
A smaller country at that.
Yes, but not maybe smaller in population.
That's right.
But not smaller in any other
production. Yeah.
In other factor. At the moment, they are producing 4 million barrels per day, and that is not even one of their major exports. They also export fish. Nigeria is the second biggest consumer of their fish after Japan, who use it for sushi, and I think the amount they make from fish is roughly about the amount we made from crude oil. So the point is that when you look at the dynamics that surround the transportation infrastructure, Nigerians don't yet understand and appreciate and internalize the value of infrastructure. And it's not just in oil and gas, it's all over. Because whether they talk about roads, they talk about water and all that, people will say, no, it's not the priority. And when they don't understand the long-term effects. But that's another discussion. The point is this. One of the main reasons, in fact, the cardinal reason why we don't produce as much as we should produce is the fact that there isn't a proper audit of what is produced. In other words, people actually being able to verify and check what is produced properly. The second thing is that when it is produced, there's a lot of seepages and leakages from people who are trying to steal things so that it doesn't get into the final destination. I think it was Hess Oil, the company that was inherited by Tony Elumelu, which said that when they produced at their first point of production, when they produced like the equivalent of 100 barrels, what they got at the end of the transportation thing was close to like 20 of it, losing 80%. That was what they said officially. They lost 80% of their value. Now, if it's like kidnappings in an area, the issue of non-government is like theft. There is a limit to what security forces can do if they don't have the cooperation of the citizens. Until we as a people decide that national infrastructure is national treasure and it should not be tampered with, it should not be damaged, we'll continue to have these issues.
Right. If we can just segue and perhaps even double down on the point you made about the Dangote refinery, for instance, is 650,000 capacity refinery, for instance, doesn't have, local feedstock that would, aid its production. He still has to import crude oil, the same one that we export right here, which makes sense that, we might not necessarily see cheaper PMS at the end of the day, because if he's buying and importing from outside to feed his operations, we're probably going to see the same pricing, so to say, going forward. What are some of the concerns there?
Not necessarily, because like I said, oil is a commodity. The nature of commodities, one of the factors of commodities is that they have uniform pricing, whether it's cocoa, whether it's gold. So even if it were from here, it would be a different case if it was being given at a subsidized rate. But as long as he's going to buy at the same price.
But there's transportation costs, isn't it?
Yes, there's transportation costs, but in the total dynamics, the transportation cost is not a significant cost in terms of, by the time you look at refining and all those things and all the other things there. Yes, it's an additional cost, don't get me wrong, but it's not
significant enough to make a difference.
Not that much, not that kind of difference. Not the kind of difference we are expecting. So, and that is why you have not seen them speaking to that aspect. Of course it is easier. Of course it is cheaper. The logistics is better if they get the
stocks from here.
If they get the feedstock from here. And it's even more honorable if they get it from here. But however, one of the things we must realize is that a previous government had committed our production and borrowed against it. So in other words, there were circumstances where previous governments before now did not have capacity to borrow money again, based on the fact that they were not paying on the loans that they had gotten.
So what they now collateralized on our production.
Yes, they collateralized on our production. So that's also another challenge, because earlier you were talking about increase in the production. But one of the issues is that there's only so much that they can
left of what is produced.
Yes, in the urban issue, and there's only so much they can increase because there's a systemic problem of people not appreciating it. So when people see it as normal, when people see it as right, when people see it as some kind of justification of themselves for them to sabotage national infrastructure, we are going to have those things. So there must be a change of orientation, and you cannot force it.
When you talk about sabotaging these infrastructures, I've had the rare privilege of visiting the creeks, and I see the kind of technology that goes into this sabotage doesn't feel like something an ordinary citizen can do. It feels like something that is happening at the highest level of it. That's something that has the cooperation and support of governance. It's a major technology to break into pipelines, to harvest those stocks, and even transport them to locations and find buyers for it. So is it not running away from the real issues when we simplify this theft? It's an organized crime that is going on that would require intervention only at the highest level of governance. Is this something the ordinary Nigerian can do anything about?
Well, first of all, it's happened within people's communities. It's not like the thing rotates or moves. It is stationed there. It takes a while for it to be built and all that. So people can blow the whistle. You understand? Even after it has been set up, people can still make authorities aware. So it was one of the former IOCs, MDs of the IOCs, I think it was Chevron or so, who said that oil theft in Nigeria is like organized crime. So there are systems to it. It's not petty theft.
That's right.
You understand? There are systems to it. The security forces are involved. You cannot say government is involved. You can say rogue aspects of governments. People who have gone rogue within government, who have gone corrupt within government, are part of it. Because calling the whole government being part of it is like saying the government is stealing from themselves, because it is government money.
That's right.
So there are aspects of governance that are part of that thing. Otherwise, it won't function. The amount of crude that is stolen per day is not the amount that can go through the seas without being detected. It is huge. It takes a vessel, a very huge vessel. So, and I don't want to speak to indict anyone without any proof, but those amount of crude cannot just disappear. And of course, they are also transported. So there must be a call for an overhaul of the system as it affects the security places in the Niger Delta. I know people say it's literally impossible to do, but it's not true. If we recall, for those who are old enough, before 1999, there used to be very huge queues on the road, and it was like fuel scarcity will never end in Nigeria and all that. And I remember when the civilian government came in, it ended in less than 6 months. In fact, in less than 3 months. And what happened? Because my understanding was that the whole division within NNPC was replaced overnight. So there came in new people. When those ones attempted to do it, they replaced them as well. So when they came in new blood, they were not used to the system, because it's a system to collect the bribe. It's a system to inculcate. So there was nobody to sabotage the system. And fuel flowed, and it returned to normal. There can be normalcy. There can be normalcy. The Navy is there. There can be some kind of cleansing within that system. The civil defense that are there can be cleansing within that system. The people within the NNPC that are there can be cleansing. But the idea that people make it look like abnormality cannot be corrected is a lie.
Yeah. Well, what are your thoughts about the recent pronouncements by the head of the NNPC, Mele Kyari, when he talks about declaring an emergency, state of emergency on oil production, also speaking to an overhaul of the system itself, talking about, our pipelines, the infrastructure basically being outdated and needing replacement. Does that, as an industry, expert, give you cause to feel optimistic about, the near future?
Yeah, we will feel optimistic because, obviously they are saying the right things. But what does declaring emergency really mean? I think that's a question we need to all of us ask, and you people need to ask even more. They need to give us a bit more details into what declaring state of emergency means. I mean, obviously, they are going to give it more attention, so which is good news. But what does it mean in reality?
You're talking about increasing production, boosting our reserves.
But how are you going to increase production? Are you just going to increase the tap? It's not working that way. They need to drill more. So there are things that it is not, even water, you cannot increase it overnight because you need to drill, you need to process the water that is coming out, you need to test it, and you need to bottle it and make it available. So if they say they are declaring state of emergency, what does it mean? That's the question we need to ask. So the steps that they will take in the declaration of the state of emergency need to be made available. It is from there that we'll be able to have, because you see, we also need to be careful. And one of the reasons why they say there's a lot of talk here is that people use highfalutin words and we don't get to the root of what they are meaning. And at the end of the day, nothing happens.
You think this is just posturing?
I've not said that. I said that it is optimistic because they are saying the right things. But we need to know what it actually means.
All right. One other problem bedeviling our oil and gas sector is lack of fresh funds. We've not been attracting investment in this area for the farthest or the longest time. The reasons are not also far-fetched. Some of them you have alluded to. Yesterday, the minister was saying that finally we have resolved the Malabu OML 245, one of our most lucrative oil wells in the country, and he expects tons of billions of naira to start flowing in, and some of the reforms that the president has announced about contract cycle and all of that. What's your prospects for the oil and gas sector with some of the moves that you have seen from this government?
Okay, no, definitely. This government has done more for the oil and gas sector than maybe the last 4 or 5 in terms of measurable things. And I think they have also done it because they have also needed to do it because of the situation that they found themselves. They are not exactly the luckiest of the governments in terms of what they met and what they are working with. So, I mean, those are facts on ground. It's good news that the issue with Malabu has been resolved because that used to be a poster boy for corruption in Nigeria.
That's right.
And they use it all over the world and all that. And that also had the input of a lot of the IOCs there. Those are facts. But the point at the end of all of this is that there is every reason to be optimistic. Please let us not get it wrong. Get that wrong. There is every reason to be optimistic. But when pronouncements are made, when actions are being spoken to, we need to get a clarity on what they really mean. Because you can mix things up. You see, if my father sends me to the farm, and I've never been to the farm before, and he says, make sure you do certain things to have 50 tubers of yam and all that. If I'm not clear in my mind, even when the instruction is clear, but if I don't digest it and I'm not clear, I will most likely not be able to bring the results that is expected. It will not be the fault of the person communicating. At the end of the day, it will be my own fault for not asking further questions to understand the root of it. So the industry has issued what they have said they are going to do, which is basically saying they would declare a state of emergency. At the minimum, that means there will be significant focus and attention on this. But what does state of emergency really mean? Because it's not like they are going to declare curfew and then nobody, so we need to understand what it means.
All right. Thank you very much.
Sowonmi is not saying posturing, but all I'm getting is there's a lot of posturing in the industry.
I mean, that question will continue
Maybe
to
more
linger.
like clarity.
And,
Exactly.
I'm sure it provides opportunity for us to continue to interface with that sector and getting the meaning of those words. I want to thank you very much for finding time to be here and for helping our viewers understand a bit more about the workings of the oil and gas sector and what to expect. We have been speaking with Sowonmi Olabode, who is the editor-at-large at Nigeria Today, and of course the Chief Executive Officer of Cabtree Limited. Good morning, and thanks for joining us.